Hello everyone. Today we will talk about the mandible. So mandible, it is the largest and the strongest bone of the face, and it forms the lower jaw. Okay. It is having the horseshoe shaped body and two rami. The rami are the upward and the backward projection from the posterior end of the mandible, and the ramus gives attachment to the muscles of the mastication, and the upper border of the horseshoe shaped body will lodges the teeth. Now, the horseshoe shaped body is having the outer surface, then this is the inner surface. It is having outer inner surface, then we have upper border and the lower border. Now we will see the features along the outer surface of the body of the mandible. So in the midline you can see this is the symphysis menti. This is the symphysis menti. It is a line at which right and the left half of the mandible that meet with each other. Okay. Then we have a triangular projection in the lower part of the body of the mandible. This is which is known as mental protuberance, and at the inferolateral angle of the mental protuberance we will find out the mental tubercles. Here we have a mental tubercles. So again this is symphysis menti. Okay, then we have a mental protuberance and we have a mental tubercles. Now symphysis menti, as we have learned pubic symphysis, right? So what it represents, that represents the secondary cartilaginous joint, right? But symphysis menti is a misnomer, right? The mandible actually it is in the two half, okay, and then it fuses by the age of the 2 years in the child, and so the cartilage in between the two bony parts, it will be replaced by the bone, and that is known as synostosis. So symphysis menti do not possess fibrocartilaginous structure in between the cartilage of the two half of the mandible, right? So symphysis menti, it is only the midline that joins the two half of the mandible, okay? It is not forming the joint, remember that. Human body that possesses 32 number of the teeth, out of which 16 will be lodged in the alveolar processes of the mandible and 16 will be lodged in the alveolar processes of the maxilla. And if we talk about each half of the mandible, it will be that is carrying 2 incisor teeth, then 1 canine, 2 premolar and 3 molar teeth. Now you can see here, this is a foramen. This is known as mental foramen, and the mental foramen is located in the interval between the 2 premolar teeth. Okay. Then see, this is the anterior border of the ramus of the mandible, and there is one oblique line. There is one oblique line that extends as a continuation of the anterior border of the ramus of the mandible and reaches up to the mental tubercle. Here we have a mental tubercle. You can see this is the mental tubercle. Okay. So this is the anterior oblique line extend from the anterior border of ramus of mandible to the mental tubercle. Mental tubercle. And the incisive fossa that lies below the incisor teeth. So along the outer surface of the mandible you have seen symphysis menti, then mental protuberance, mental tubercles, mental foramen, anteriorly this is the oblique line, and incisive fossa. Now we will talk about the inner surface of the mandible. So in the median plane you can see these are the tubercles. Okay, these are known as genial tubercles. They are pair in the superior aspect and they are in the pair in the inferior aspect. So upper genial tubercles and the lower genial tubercles, and then here you can see the most prominent ridge. You can see here the most prominent ridge extending from below the third molar tooth to the genial tubercles. Okay, this is known as mylohyoid line. This is known as mylohyoid line. You can very well see the prominent ridge here. This is the mylohyoid line. Okay, then we have two fossa related to the mylohyoid line. Below and behind the mylohyoid line here, you can very well mark the depression that is known as submandibular fossa. Submandibular fossa that lodges the submandibular gland. Okay, so that fossa lies below and behind the mylohyoid line, and above the mylohyoid line here, that lies the sublingual gland in the sublingual fossa. So along the inner aspect of the body, we have a genial tubercles in the median plane. Then we have a mylohyoid line, prominent ridge, extend from just below the third molar tooth to the genial tubercles, and we have a two fossa, that is submandibular fossa below the mylohyoid line and sublingual fossa above the mylohyoid line. Mylohyoid groove that extends from the ramus onto the body of the mandible just below and behind the mylohyoid line. So you can see here a groove which is very well marked with the pen. Okay, so this is the mylohyoid groove which extends from the ramus of mandible to the body of the mandible. Then the upper border of the body of the mandible that lodges the teeth, and the lower border of the mandible is known as base, and at the lower border in the median plane you will find out two fossa. Okay, these are known as digastric fossa. These are known as digastric fossa. The ramus of the mandible is quadrilateral in the outline. It is having the lateral surface, then this is the medial surface, and four borders: anterior border, posterior border, upper border, and the lower border. So thin anterior border, thick posterior border, upper border will be notched, and this is the lower border. Now the lateral surface of the ramus of mandible, it is having a number of oblique ridges that represents the muscular attachment of the masseter muscle, and about the medial surface, along the medial surface of the ramus of mandible, you can see a very well marked foramen, right? This is the mandibular foramen. Okay, it is situated at the level of the occlusive surface of the teeth and just above the center of the ramus of the mandible. So here there is a location, and this is the mandibular canal. This is the mandibular foramen that leads into the mandibular canal. The mandibular canal that extends into the body of the mandible, and it will open at the level of mental foramen anteriorly. At the anterior margin of the mandibular foramen, you can see a tongue-like projection. That tongue-like projection, bony projection, is known as lingula, and from below the mandibular foramen, you can see a mylohyoid groove that runs downward and forward and lost over the submandibular fossa. Okay, so along the medial surface of the ramus, we have a mandibular foramen that leads into the mandibular canal. Anteriorly, we will be having a tongue-like projection that is known as lingula, and below the mandibular foramen, you will find out the mylohyoid groove here, and the ramus of the mandible, apart from the borders and the surfaces, it presents the two processes. This one, the triangular projection, is known as coronoid process, and this is known as condyloid process. At the upper end of which is expanded from side to side. Okay. Now, the upper border of the ramus of the mandible is thin, and it is curved with the convexity directed downward. So this is the curved border. Upper border is known as mandibular notch. The lower border of the ramus of mandible, it is a continuation of the from the base of the mandible, and at the posteriorly it will continue with the posterior border of the ramus here. Okay, so here we have meeting point of the lower border and posterior border of the ramus, and this is known as angle of the mandible. This is known as angle of the mandible. Then this is the anterior border of the ramus, which is thin. This is the posterior border of the ramus, which is thick. Now the ramus of the mandible is having the two processes, coronoid process and condyloid process. Coronoid process is the upward flattened triangular projection from the anterosuperior part of the ramus. Okay, this is the coronoid process, anterior border of which will continue with the anterior border of the ramus, and the posterior border of the coronoid process will mark the mandibular notch. This is the condyloid process. You can see that condyloid process is a strong and upward projection from the postero-superior part of the ramus, and the upper end of which is expanded from side to side, and that is known as head. And the head is covered by the fibrocartilage, and it forms a temporomandibular joint when it will articulate with the mandibular fossa of the temporal bone. Next to the head, we have a constriction that is known as neck. Okay, here there will be the neck, and along the anterior surface of the condyloid process, it bears the fossa, it bears the fovea, that is known as pterygoid fovea. So condyloid process is a strong upward projection from posterior part of ramus, having the upper expanded head, then we have a neck and the pterygoid fovea, and the head of the condyloid process will form the temporomandibular joint. So that was all about the external features of the mandible. Now we will talk about the attachment along the mandible. Along the outer surface, okay, we have seen the oblique line. So oblique line that gives origin to the buccinator muscle, and in front of the attachment of the buccinator muscle and below the mantle foramen, here it gives attachment to the depressor labii inferioris and depressor labii anguli-oris muscle. The incisive fossa, which lies below the incisor teeth, that gives origin to the mentalis muscle and also gives attachment to the mantle slips of the orbicularis oris muscle. Now this is the alveolar margin. Okay, so a part below the alveolar margin on the outer aspect as well as along the inner aspect. Okay, they are covered by the mucous membrane of the mouth, and along the inner surface of the mandible, this is the mylohyoid line. So mylohyoid line gives origin to the mylohyoid muscle, and superior constrictor muscle of the pharynx. Okay, superior constrictor muscle of the pharynx, it is also attached over here above the posterior end of the mylohyoid line. Here there is the attachment of the superior constrictor muscle of the pharynx. Immediately behind the third molar tooth and in the continuation of the origin of the superior constrictor muscle of the pharynx, there is an attachment of the pterygomandibular raphe. Okay, so from before backward we have attachment of the, here we have a mylohyoid muscle, then we have superior constrictor muscle of the pharynx, then we have a pterygomandibular raphe. Along the inner surface and along the lower border of the mandible, we have seen the digastric fossa in the median plane, right? So digastric fossa that gives attachment to the origin to the anterior belly of digastric muscle. Okay, digastric muscle is having two bellies, anterior and the posterior belly. Anterior belly will be arising from the digastric fossa. Then the whole lower border of the body of the mandible will give attachment to the deep cervical fascia. Okay, and the lower border of the base or we can say the base of mandible, that also gives attachment to the platysma muscle. The lateral surface of the ramus, whole of the lateral surface except the postero-superior part of the ramus. This is the postero-superior part of the ramus. Except the posterior-superior part of the ramus along the lateral surface receives insertion of the masseter muscle, and the posterior-superior part of the lateral surface of ramus of the mandible is related to the parotid gland. Okay. Attachment along the medial surface. So this is the lingula, tongue-like projection, where it gives attachment to the sphenomandibular ligament. Lingula, that gives attachment to the sphenomandibular ligament. Then along the lower part of the medial surface of the ramus of mandible, below and behind the mylohyoid groove, okay, this is the roughened area that receives insertion of the medial pterygoid muscle, and temporalis muscle is attached, it is inserted to the apex of the coronoid process, okay, and it also extends on the medial surface of the coronoid process. The insertion may extend downward onto the anterior border of the ramus. So we have seen the attachment of the masseter muscle along the lateral surface of the ramus of mandible, except the posterior-superior part of the ramus of mandible. Then along the medial surface, the lower part will be receiving the attachment of the medial pterygoid muscle below and behind the mylohyoid groove. Then temporalis muscle will be inserted along the apex of the coronoid process, then the medial surface, and it may extend along the anterior border of the ramus. Okay, so these are the three muscles. They are the muscles of mastication, and another muscle is the lateral pterygoid muscle. That lateral pterygoid muscle will be inserted into the pterygoid fovea along the condyloid process, and you can see this is the head, and here we have a neck. So along the lateral surface of the neck, that gives attachment to the lateral ligament of the temporomandibular joint. So in the exam, okay, you are asked about the attachment of the muscles of the mastication. Okay, so medial and lateral pterygoid muscle, temporalis and masseter muscle. Then you are also asked about the relation of the glands. So we have seen along the lateral surface at posterior superior part, there is a relation of the parotid gland. Then here submandibular fossa, we have a submandibular gland, and here in the sublingual fossa we have a sublingual gland. So this is important. And apart from this relation and the attachment, you are also asked about the relations of the nerves and the vessels related to the mandible. See, in the median plane we have seen the genial tubercles, right? So they are in the pair with the upper and the lower tubercles. So upper genial tubercle will give attachment to the genioglossus muscle, and the lower pair of the genial tubercle, that will give attachment to the geniohyoid muscle. Now the mental foramen, we have seen along the external aspect of the body of the mandible. So mental foramen that transmit the mental nerves and the vessels, and the mental nerve and the vessels, they come from the inferior alveolar nerve and the vessels. Now inferior alveolar nerve and the vessels that enters the mandibular canal through the mandibular foramen, okay, and it runs within the mandibular canal. You know that this is the mylohyoid groove, and along the mylohyoid groove there runs the mylohyoid nerve and the mylohyoid vessels. The lingual nerve, this is one of the important relation, okay, lingual nerve, that is related along the medial surface of the ramus in front of the mylohyoid groove. So here, see, in front of the mylohyoid groove and along the ramus. Here we have a relation of the lingual nerve. The area above and behind the mandibular foramen, this is a mandibular foramen. So above and behind, this is the area above and behind the area of the mandibular foramen. This area is related to the inferior alveolar nerve and the vessels and maxillary artery. Then mesenteric nerve and the vessels, they pass through the mandibular notch. They pass through the mandibular notch, and along the medial side of the neck, here along the medial side of the neck of the mandible, it is related to the auriculotemporal nerve and the superficial temporal artery. This is also very much important. Along the medial side of the neck of the mandible, it is related to the auriculotemporal nerve and the superficial temporal artery. Then at the junction of the body of the mandible and the ramus of the mandible, here there are relation of the facial artery, facial vein and marginal mandibular branch of the facial nerve. So they are related from within outwards, facial artery, facial vein and marginal mandibular branch of the facial nerve. Okay, so facial artery, that is located along the, here we have attachment of the masseter muscle, and at the level of anteroinferior angle of the masseter muscle, there is a relation of the facial artery. Then we have a vein and marginal mandibular branch of the facial nerve. You know the angle of mandible, okay, it is located over here at the junction of the lower border and the posterior border of the ramus of mandible. So this is the angle of the mandible, which gives attachment to the stylomandibular ligament. So stylomandibular ligament, it is the modification of the deep fascia, deep cervical fascia, right? So we have seen the attachment of the three ligaments. The one is stylomandibular ligament along the angle of the mandible. Then we have sphenomandibular ligament along the lingula. And we have seen the pterygomandibular raphe, okay, as in the continuation of the attachment of the superior constrictor muscle of the pharynx. Here pterygomandibular raphe. So relations of the salivary glands, parotid gland, submandibular, sublingual gland, right? Then we have three ligaments, stylomandibular, then sphenomandibular and pterygomandibular raphe, okay, and the attachment of the muscles of the mastication, then the relations of the nerves and the vessels. These are the most important question that is commonly asked in the exam. See, here we have a three mandibles, right? This is of a child, this is of the adult one, and this is of old age person, right? So you are also asked about the age changes related to the mandible. So in the infant or the children, the mandible in the infant is actually in the two half, and by the time of the age, okay, it will be the cartilage will be replaced by the bone by means of synostosis, and at the time of the birth, see, this is the mental foramen. Can you see the mental foramen? So in case of the mandible of a child, okay, so mental foramen will be located along the lower border of the body of the mandible. This is because the bone is made up of only of the alveolar part with the teeth sockets. So the mental foramen lies at the level of the lower border of the mandible, and the mandibular canal will also run along the lower border of the body of the mandible. This is in case of the infant or the children, right? This is of the adult one, in which the alveolar part of the bone and the subalveolar part of the bone, they are equally well developed. So the mental foramen lies in the midway between the upper border and the lower border of the body of the mandible. And in case of the old age, okay, you can very well see the absorption of the alveolar processes of the mandible. So because of the absorption of the alveolar processes of the mandible, position of the mental foramen is seen along the upper border of the body of the mandible. So here you have seen the changes, that the location of the mental foramen in the mandible bone, that is different. Okay, in the child it will be along the lower border of the body, in the adult it will be in the midway between the upper and the lower border of the body, and along the old age of the mandible we have a mental foramen along the upper border of the body of the mandible. Now another thing I want to show you, another point regarding the age changes. We have a angle. Okay, we have a angle. See, this is a book picture, right? Here you can see there is angle between the body and we have a ramus. So that angle between the ramus and the body of the mandible, it is obtuse at the time of the birth. It is about 140 degree or more. Okay, and here you can also see that coronoid process is projected upward, okay, and above the level of the condyloid process, right? So the angle between the body and the ramus is obtuse also because of the head is in the line with the body. The head is in the line with the body. Okay, so we have obtuse angle here, and the coronoid process is projected beyond the length of the condyloid process. Okay, this is in case of the bone of the child only, right, at the time of the birth. And in the other mandible, this is of the adult and this is of the old age, you can see the position of the condyloid process is same, okay, and it is higher up than the coronoid processes. Now again you can see that the angle in the adult, okay, so it will be 110 degree plus or minus 15. Okay, the angle between the ramus and the body will be 110 plus or minus 15. Okay, and again in the case of old age we have obtuse angle again, because the ramus is oblique to the body, and in the adult we have a decrease in the angle, that is 110, okay, because the ramus is almost vertical. Okay, you can again see here we have obtuse angle at the time of the birth, okay, because the head lies in the line with the body. Then here ramus is almost vertical, so angle is decreased 110 in the adult. And again, because of the oblique direction of the ramus, okay, here we have again obtuse angle in the old age, okay, and here we have absorption of the alveolar processes. In case of the adult bone, as the alveolar and the subalveolar parts are equally formed, okay, so because of that the mandibular canal that runs parallel with the mylohyoid line, it runs parallel with the mylohyoid line in the adult bone, okay, that we have learned in case of the child, it will run along the lower border of the body of the mandible. And here the angle between the body and the ramus is decreased because of the vertical growth of the ramus of the mandible. In the old age the teeth fall out, right, and so the alveolar border is absorbed, so that height of the body is markedly reduced, and so we can see the mental foramen along the upper border close to the alveolar border of the mandible. And again the angle will be obtuse about 140 degree because the ramus is oblique. So that was all about the tutorial of the mandible and the relation of the nerves, vessels, relations of the salivary glands, attachment of the muscles of the mastication mostly, right? And the age related changes of the mandible are the most important questions asked in the exam.